What's up, YouTube? Bay Area Baller back again. Woo! The NFL offseason is underway. I'm joined by my boy Johnny, aka that Niner guy. Johnny, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Niners got some people, lost some people. Overall, pretty solid. So feeling pretty good. I know a lot of people think the sky is falling, but let's talk them off the ledge a little bit. That sounds fun, right?
Yeah, I like the
Yeah,
sound of that.
yeah.
And Johnny, I mean, the first signing the Niners made absolutely exceeded my expectations. I thought Javon Hargrave was nowhere on my radar. I thought he was out of the question. I thought he was going to cost too much money. But hey, John Lynch, Parag, Kyle Shanahan, they pulled it off. They get Javon Hargrave, the superstar defensive tackle from the Philadelphia Eagles. He had 11 sacks last year. Just a phenomenal player. Johnny, were you like, was that on your radar? Did you think that was possible? Because I was looking at like lower tier. We knew D tackle was a need, but I was looking at a couple tiers down the list there.
Yeah, I was looking more along the David Ayumata signing, around that $10 million range, or like Poona Ford,
I was hoping
guys
for
like
like
that.
Nakeem Hicks. I was hoping for Nakeem Hicks, a vet, who you could play on a limited snap count, but no, they get the big boy.
Yeah, and the big thing is that the Niners, I think, realized. Well, number one, they realized the Buckner thing was an epic mistake. Trying to replace an all-pro player with an unknown is just never good business. It's unfortunate it is. Now, if they just drafted Justin Jefferson, no one would have cared. But because it was Javon Kinlaw, it kind of blew it up, or even Tristan Wirfs for that matter, which is unfortunate. But I think they've learned from their lesson, and they realize how important breaking down the pocket is. Because I think the one flaw from this team last year was they did not push the pocket as much as they wanted to. They got a lot of pressure on the outside, and a lot of quarterbacks stepped up. And every time they bailed, they were always sacked. But if
Yeah,
stepping up in the pocket, teams
Armstead
are
missed a
fairly
chunk of that
successful.
season. Armstead missed a
Yeah,
chunk. That hurt big time. Guys like Ridgeway went down. There was a bunch of injuries along the front line.
yeah. And now I think it's setting up for. It's really going to give offenses fits because you can put him all over the defensive front. He's a really good athlete, really quick twitch. I mean, you're not going to put him on the edge, but really great signing. He's going to be a 3-down player. He'll play a lot. And it's also basically a 2-year deal. So that's the other good part of it too. Yeah, I know he's 30. I know that's scaring people, but the truth is, it's basically a 2-year contract. So the Niners should get out of it fairly quickly. The Niners have a lot of. It's interesting. They have a lot of money on the books for the next 2 years, but then it like free falls off a cliff. It's really interesting to see how the cap got set up. But no, I really like it. I mean, I don't think there's anyone who dislikes it. Definitely a plus signing.
Yeah. Well, the one thing that's kind of got me concerned, Johnny, is I mean, I know we had to do it to make a signing like Hargrave, but we're pushing a lot of money into the future, no? It is from what all these restructures, like you're going to have to pay these guys. And to make this cap room now means that they're pushing that money further on down the road. Am I wrong with that?
No, but they're pushing the money down the road with guys who probably are going to be here. I think that's the bigger thing. It's when you cut those guys, and
I
then
see.
you have
Like
a
D
giant
Ford,
dead.
Ford is we're paying D Ford 8 mil. You don't want to make a habit of stuff like that.
Exactly. The guys who they extended are Travarius Ward. Travarius Ward can get a second contract here. So that's not out of the question. He can get another 2-year deal here and still be around. Jimmy Ward's counting $6 million against the cap this year. So I mean, it's unfortunate, but it does happen. They resetted Kittle. Kittle's probably going to finish this contract out. Armstead might be the only guy who may not finish the contract out, but then again, though, the Niners love him. The organization loves him, so maybe he takes a pay cut next year. I don't know how that's going to work out. But the guys that are extended, and then obviously Fred Warner, who is going to be a career 49er, he's not going anywhere ever. Like he will finish his career or whatever time it is to the Niner. So that's the good news. It's guys who are productive and guys who are going to be around. So you can always mess with the contract and keep kicking the can down the road at times and working through it and figuring it out.
Yeah. Say what's up to the chat. Celts, thanks for stopping by. He said, I want to be a Baller, shot caller. That's right,
There you
Kel.
go.
Thanks for stopping by.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is, I mean, it's going to be a formidable front. When you're looking at Bosa, you're looking at Hargrave, Armstead, and, right now, the only other guy you can, or a couple guys you could pencil in, we're going to get to Farrell in a second, but the other guy would be Drake Jackson. Like, they still need to add, and we're going to talk some draft a little later. We're going to talk some free agents, maybe who do you want? But we're still talking about these new additions you see up here on the screen. And Javon Hargrave. I put out some tape. I've been watching a lot of Eagles tape just to see what Javon Hargrave is bringing to the table. And you see it. The dude's just a monster. He's bullying guards, pushing them back into the quarterback, just wrecking havoc. And it's exciting to watch it and say, hey, that's going to be our guy. That is our guy, but we're going to be watching him on the field here soon.
Yeah, no, I think the biggest thing is the Niners finally have a guy who, if you leave him one-on-one on the inside, he's going to get a sack. That's somebody they have not had since Buckner. Armstead, he gets doubled a lot, and I think that helps out Bosa in a way, but, it hurts the Armstead overall numbers. But now it's going to be pick your poison. Who you going to double? You're going to double Hargrave, you're going to double Armstead. Both these guys will wreck the game if you don't account for them all the time. And then one of those guys will be next to Bosa. It bodes really well because teams are going to have to really focus on blocking the interior, and Bosa's going to get a lot more, not so much that guard extra slide, going to get a lot of those chips and those things that they like to penetrate and beat. I really am excited to see what Steve Wilkes is going to do because he does know how to get to the quarterback even with a subpar list. But I think they'll also get Jordan Willis back. I think that's a realistic. They'll probably they did what they did with him last year. They waited.
I hope so.
They got him.
I hope so. Yeah. MF, thanks for stopping by. He says thoughts on Jordan Willis. Jordan Willis, he's a good player. If you check out his combine numbers, Niner guy, his combine numbers were off the charts in terms of size, speed, acceleration, strength, and we saw him come on strong. I feel like the last couple of years, he's finished the season strong. Yeah, I absolutely want Jordan Willis. You feel like he shouldn't be too expensive, and we know how much Chris Kosaric and these guys like to rotate bodies along that D line. Jordan Willis, I absolutely want him back.
Yeah, I think he'll be back. He fits this scheme really well. Like you said, he's finished it strong. He had the huge block punt in 21 and 22 playoffs. This past year, he basically made Drake Jackson inactive because he was playing so good that they couldn't take him off the field because not only was he playing well against the run, but even in 15 snaps a game, he was getting sacks. He was getting pressure off the edge. So, and he's not like a burner. That's not him. He's a really good athlete for his size, but he's not super quick. But yeah, I really like Jordan Willis. I really hope they get him back. They get him back and then draft a kid or two. They're going to have their 10 or 11 off defensive linemen again. So I'm not so worried about it, but I do think they need to bring him back. I think he's probably the key returnee that they still need to get.
Oh, I like that. Okay. Well, I want to go to our second new addition. He was signed today. Was that today or yesterday? Isaiah Oliver.
Yeah, yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah.
49ers signed Isaiah Oliver. Sounds like he profiles as a slot guy. Is that what you've heard?
So he's played slot. Yeah, he's played slot. And last year he played slot and played it very well. He had one of the better slot ratings, and he's also one of the best corners against the run, which is the Niners prioritize heavily. And that's probably the reason why that Jimmy Ward's not here anymore, if they can get him a lot cheaper. And also Jimmy wanted to play safety. We'll get to Jimmy Ward later in the show. But I think the Isaiah Oliver, like a lot of people, you see on Twitter, a lot of people really liked him out of college. Like he was a really good athlete, blew up the combine. People had him going like in the top 10 in mock drafts at that time. I remember that. Yeah, I remember Brett Coleman. If you guys don't know him, he's a film guy. He's a film junkie for the draft. He made this video on him. I was like, oh my God, this guy's going to be a stud. It took him some time to figure it out. But he's coming off a career year after tearing his ACL, which is really impressive. I really like the signing. He's a guy who he knows how to pick out Jimmy Garoppolo too, which is also a little funny. But hey, we won't beat on Jimmy too much today. But no, overall, it's a good signing. Definitely going to give them another man component in this defense. I think that's what they're trying to add is a little bit more man defense, so they can bring some more pressure and different looks. Yeah, I really like it.
No doubt. I went back and looked at some of his PFF grades last year. I believe he only played in. I think he had an injury last year. Might only played in a handful of games.
No, 21. He tore his ACL, so he didn't start playing until a little bit later in the season.
Ah, thank you.
Yeah.
That's why I got you on, Johnny. Okay, so he came back late from a torn ACL, and PFF gave him respectable grades. 72 coverage grade. They really liked his run defense at an 81.5. And if we go back, let's look at 2020. They didn't like his coverage so much, of 53.3. That's in 2020 with a run defense grade 77. And last year they liked him again. So he's had some good years according to PFF.
Yeah, he's a really good coverage guy. He's not got to take the ball away a whole lot, which really fits this mold of corner that they want. They want guys who are going to be sticky. They're not necessarily going to be interception machines, but they'll be advantageous when they get it. The Niners prioritize linebackers and safeties getting turnovers because they're the ones in those middle zones when they corners force those throws over the middle. So definitely fits, I think, what their overall idea is in secondary. And he's 26 years old. I think his best football still ahead of him. So really, really good pickup. And he's fairly cheap. So I actually didn't see the contract numbers, but it can't be more than $3 million.
Right before the show, I was trying to see if there was a number that came out on Oliver, and nothing. There was a blank. So, although I don't think he's going to be too expensive, like you said.
Yeah, if he's signed as a slot, it's going to be probably in the $3 to $5 million range, which would make some sense. That's kind of like the average slot rate pay scale, and it keeps the 49ers in that comp pick formula, which they very much love.
Yeah, they do. They love their comp picks. Why don't we move to the new quarterback edition? It's a 1-year, $4.5 million deal for Sam Darnold, coming over from the Carolina Panthers. Played respectable, after they traded away Baker Mayfield, came in, played solid, had a winning record with the Panthers to close out last season. And we knew the 49ers were going to bring in somebody. Obviously, the 49ers were crushed by injuries at the quarterback position last year. That being said, there's some recency bias, Johnny. Like, Twitter had 49ers fans wanting, Ryan Tannehill if he got cut, Marcus Mariota. Like, no, they're not spending $10 million on Marcus Mariota, right? But they get Sam Darnold in, who's got NFL experience. He's never played with as much talent as the 49ers have. 1 year, 4.5. What do you think about it?
So it's probably a great hedge. I have a couple layers of this. So why Sam Darnold? Well, number one, the Niners said, which Kyle and John both said, it's a quarterback who we think could be a really good option as a backup, but also fits in our cap structure. So that's number one why Sam Darnold's here. Definitely fits in the cap structure. A little surprising they're able to sign him because I thought he might have gone to the Colts or somewhere where he might have had a better chance to play, which is the second part of that's interesting is that I think the main reason why they brought Sam Darnold in is to make sure, because I'm of the belief that Brock Purdy's not playing until October. I think that's a very realistic time frame. I think anyone who's saying Brock's going to be back in September, I think is grossly underestimating the data that's out. I understand that with this UCL surgery that people have come back and maybe thrown the ball harder, this and that, but they didn't come back 5 months later and play contact football right away. The one guy who had this surgery was Dick Mullins, but Dick Mullins didn't play at a game until late November when he got signed off the Eagles practice squad to go play for the Bengals because they ran out of quarterback, or the Browns. They ran out of quarterbacks. Remember that awful Tuesday night game that happened with the Raiders? A terrible game, but that was the first time Nick Mullins played. So he didn't play for almost a calendar year after his surgery. So I think this is what this really is number one, they feel like Sam Darnold's issues are similar in a way to Trey Lance's issues that they see, and they feel like either one of these quarterbacks can win games with while Brock is still on the mend. Because I do believe Brock's going to be out probably until the middle of October, end of October. I also think the Niners do realize the fact that they need to be very cautious with this and not rush him back. So that's number one. But number two is that they are also going to push Trey Lance. Because I do believe that the Niners do want to do this because the bigger thing is that they want to get a sample size on Trey Lance, not this 4 games of he's the worst quarterback ever you see on Twitter, which is total nonsense. But I think that's the other reason why. They want to push Trey Lance. I think the one knock maybe players had against Trey last offseason was they just kind of gave him the job. They kind of fixed the QB competition so that Trey would be the starter. And every other position on this team, except for Trent Williams, literally every other position on this team was earned. I mean, most of these guys were drafted by the Niners. You know, Kittle was a 3rd-string tight end when he got here. Debo was a 4th-string receiver. Like, he barely played in the first couple games. Ayuk played a ton his rookie year out of necessity because they literally ran out of bodies. And then he started tearing it up. So, I think the Niners as a team felt like I think it's the one big knock maybe the players had against Trey Lance. And now it's going to be the Niners are hedged in the event that Brock is out longer. And it's good for the 49ers, guys. If you're a Trey, I also am one of the people who I don't really care who the quarterback is anymore. I want what's best for the 49ers. And Brock, Trey, Sam, I think all 3 they can win a lot of games with. So wow. I'm not so concerned. This team is nasty. They're so good, and then the rest of the NFC has gotten so weak. I mean, we can go into the divisions. I mean, the NFC West is getting pillaged.
It's Rams are just shipping off bodies left and right. The Cardinals they're going to have to play without Kyler Murray for at least like half the season, a quarter of the season. He's not going to be ready by week 1 as Kyler, is he?
He's probably going to be gone for the season. I mean, he got hurt late in November. I would be shocked because you cannot rush him back, because if you rush him back and he hurts that knee again, you're in huge trouble.
And he is so predicated on his athleticism.
Right.
He needs to get out of the pocket. So he doesn't live in the pocket.
Yeah. He's 5'9". He's my height. I actually might be taller. I think I'm like 5'10". I think I might be taller than him. But that's the thing. He can't see. So he's got to be able to be mobile. And if he can't move, you can't put him out there because he's going to get hurt again. If he can't protect himself, it's a big no-no. And they also lost Zach Allen and they lost Byron Murphy. And they're probably going to lose DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, Hopkins is on the way out.
Yeah, so they're getting torn apart. They're the worst team in the division.
J.J. Watt retired.
Yeah, well, he would have been gone. He was a free agent. He would have been gone if he had played. He would have been gone regardless. If he tried to maybe go play with his brother on 1 year to try and maybe get a ring or something.
So he played out his contract with the Cardinals? Was that it for him?
He only had a 2-year deal.
So it's like, I wonder, mid-season, late in the season for a playoff push, someone might give JJ a call. Playoff team. Hey, JJ, I know you had a kid, you want to be a father, but hey, come join us for this playoff run.
I could definitely see that happening with JJ Watt, because I think he'll be a guy who'll miss football too much and will want to come back and can maybe help a team and go get a Super Bowl ring.
You can kind of pick it. You can be like, who needs a D end? Who's looking good? Like, who can you put over the top?
Mm-hmm.
I could see. Why don't we wrap up the new additions here? Any last thoughts on Darnold? I thought we hit it pretty good.
No, I think overall, I think it's good for the 49ers. It's a good problem to have. And if Sam plays, the Niners can still win games. So that's, it's not the Josh Johnson scenario.
Yeah. I think Sam's solid. It's a good move. 49ers need some depth. I'm glad he's cheap. I did not want the 49ers spending $9 or $10 million on a 3rd-string quarterback, especially when you got 2 promising players that I think are talented. When you're talking Trey Lance, you're talking Brock Purdy. But I want to touch on the last new addition, Celin Ferrell. Okay, this guy, he was part of the Nick Bosa draft, right? Raiders took him in the top 10, took him way too high. He was ultra productive at Clemson, but he just didn't have the physical attributes that you prototypically want in a top 10 defensive line pick. And I think Mayock missed on that one. But hey, the Niners get him. Listen to this. One year, 2.5 mil. So they get him at a bargain, former top 10 pick. What do you know about Celin Ferrell?
He's a prototypical size. He's not the best athlete, but he's a monster. The funny thing with Mayock, if all he had to do was take the other two Clemson guys, and he probably might still have a job. Who knows? If he just took Lawrence or Christian Watkins. No, Farrell's a guy. He was crazy productive his first year in the league. Got a bunch of sacks, got a bunch of TFLs, and then it kind of all fell apart for one reason or another. I haven't really watched him a lot because he kind of rode the bench quite a bit. He didn't play a whole hell of a lot the last couple of years with the Raiders. But this is a Chris Kasarik, I'm gonna turn you into a stud and get you firing off the ball sort of deal. It's a good depth piece. I think he can have a role somewhat similar to a Charles Omenihu, being a guy who's going to be a run-stopping end, and then if you need pass rush, bump him inside because he's got that length that can really mess with guards. He's not as fast, but we'll see. Maybe he might shred some weight in the offseason.
I'm thinking he's a base down guy. You're bringing him in mostly on rushing downs.
Yeah,
that's primarily what I'm thinking. He's a big, strong guy. He can set the edge in the run game. But hey, when it's 3rd and long, 3rd and 7, you take him off the field. You bring in the speed package, and you can try him out inside. I feel like he's a guy who he's got some size to him, some girth. He might be able to play inside, but still, he's got to prove it to me that you want him there in pass rushing situations. I think this is a depth signing. It's an upside signing, and hey, 1 year, 2.5 mil. I mean, they're not paying a whole lot for a former top 10 pick.
Yeah, no, it's a good signing. I mean, even if people don't agree that he should have been a top 10 pick, he still would have been a first round pick. Like, he's a very talented player. Going to the Raiders is just how many players have left the Raiders and then gone on to have better careers. So wouldn't shock me at all. He's coming here for a reason because he wants to get in this system and get his career back on track. Very similar to Sam Darnold in that fashion too. They're both kind of careers have been derailed. Even I'd say Oliver to a degree. He was a high 2nd round pick too. The careers have kind of been derailed a little bit by injury, by something, and now they're coming here where they can be on a winning team and hopefully cash in later again. So it's a huge upside move. He's not going to play more than 15 snaps a game if he does play. So I really like it. I think, again, like you said, Baller, it's going to be a lot of rush down, a lot of base 4-3 packages with him in it. Maybe getting Bosa off the field for a blow, or even just taking Drake Jackson off the field if he's not going to be too stout in the run game. So,
yeah. Niners Sickness, Beto stopped by, said, "What's up, everyone?" What's up, Beto? Thanks for stopping by.
What's up, guys?
Why don't we move to the resigned tier on the board? And first player on there, Jake Brendel. And I had a feeling, Johnny, that the Niners, they want some camaraderie along that offensive line. So I had thought Jake Brendel was going to be re-signed. It was either him or Brunskill. I knew that they would not let both of those players go because you want some known commodity. And they get Jake Brendel back, who had a really solid year for his first year starting, right? And I remember talking before the season. I was like, Johnny, I'm really not too concerned with Jake Brendel at center. And I feel like that vision kind of came to fruition. Not going to say he's great. Yeah, I did see him, in the playoffs. He missed a key block on a screen pass, but it's like, that's one play, but it just kind of sticks out in my memory. But he was really solid. I'm glad we got Jake Brendel back. Looking at the 4 years, 20 mil, Johnny, is what I'm seeing.
It's 4 years, 20 mil, but it's a base of 8, and it's all incentives. So it's actually it's a really cheap deal for the Niners. It's funny. Jesse brought this up, but essentially Bradbury and Brendel got signed right around the same time, which means there were negotiations going on for both guys. And the Niners probably were in the beginning thinking of upgrading to Bradbury, even though it's not a major upgrade, but it is an upgrade. And then they ended up getting Brendel. And overall, it's a good signing. It gives you a lot of depth. It doesn't force this offensive line to have 2 new starters next year versus having only one. Because McGlinchey was gone the second the season was over. Everyone kind of knew that one was coming. So 80% of the offensive line is returning, and then you have Nick Zakelj as a backup, who I was kind of surprised they actually signed Brendel because I thought they were going to let Zakelj be the center because I think he's stronger.
Krug's been hyping up Zakelj too. Kruger likes Zakelj. Yeah.
I tend to like guys. Me and Kruger I think we talked about this. I see things very similar to how Kruger does, especially with offensive defensive linemen. But Kruger, I think with Zakelj was like he wanted to play center in college, but then they just had to play a left tackle up for him. He's committed to it. But it's a good backup piece, and now he can be a backup at guard too. So a lot of good depth for the 49ers on the offensive line. I know everyone doesn't believe that. Apparently their offensive line is going to be awful next year. But it's true. They're going to be very deep, a lot of returning guys. Essentially all their players are returning. Jalen Moore too. Jason Poe is probably going to make the active roster, and they'll probably draft a guy or two. So it's going to be a lot of continuity for the offensive line, which is nothing but good news.
Definitely. Glad Jake Brendel's back. Let's move to the veteran DeSean Gibson, who returns on a 1-year deal. Guy's a ball hawk, Johnny. Got him back. What's the money on 1 year, 2.9? Sounds pretty good to me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's a value signing for sure. It's hard because of his age. This is a guy who was contemplating retirement as well. So that's a little tricky when you don't have a lot of depth at safety. We all like DeSean Gibson. He overachieved last year. He forced the 49ers to put Jimmy Ward at the slot because he was playing so well in his absence. They couldn't take him off the field. And ended up being the best thing for the 49ers defense because then they got Jimmy Ward at slot and they had 5 really good DBs. And that's really rare to have on a defense. So definitely a great signing. I personally would have liked an upgrade. But I think the Niners' plan is they're going to try and develop a safety. They don't seem to value safety as much as the rest of the league does. And so they'll probably draft a guy.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. It's cool to have Gibson back, but you want some young blood in there. We know the 49ers have 3 third-round picks. Maybe they're pegging one of those picks to be a safety of the future, per se.
Yeah, no, I personally believe with one of those, if they do keep those 3 thirds and don't move up in the draft, I personally believe one of those picks should be a free safety, one should be an offensive tackle, and one should be a defensive end. Just on their roster construction alone.
Yeah. And we're going to get to some draft crushes later, but I'm going to mix in one position. It's not like a super need, but there's a player that is supremely talented, in my opinion, that it might be kind of a luxury pick if you get him, but we'll get there in a minute. Why don't we move to Jauan Jennings? We knew he was going to be back 1 year. Less than $1 million, Johnny. That's the thing with these late round draft picks. These teams just have so much control, It's like you get Jauan. Jauan's been good the last couple of years. Poor guy can't get paid. He's back 1 year, which is good for the Niners. 1 year, $940K is what I saw. Whoa.
Yeah, he's a restricted free agent. He'll be a true free agent next year. It was sort of the Kendrick Bourne. It's just like Kendrick Bourne, like exactly to a T. What's going on with him? Wouldn't shock me at all when he signs for like $8 or $9 million next offseason for some team. But no, definitely a value signing for sure because he gives you valuable snaps. He's really good on third down. He fits that big slot that Kyle loves. That extra tight end who's also a slot receiver and can move better. I really like. We all like Jauan. It's definitely one of the better players to bring back.
No doubt. Okay, next up, Colton McQuibbitz. The swing tackle right now feels like he's kind of penciled in as that starting right tackle. Are the 49ers going to make a move? Are they going to sign somebody to compete with him? Are they going to draft a guy? I don't know yet. But Colton McQuibbitz, we saw him The performance I remember was when Trent was down with the ankle injury and he filled in at left tackle against the Rams to close out. That was last season. And I thought he had a good performance. I thought, they obviously like him. What have you seen from Colton McQuibbitz?
The one thing I do like about Colton McQuibbitz is he's good in pass protection. Like, that's the one thing about Colton McQuibbitz that I think is maybe a plus over Mike McGlinchey. He actually might be a better pass blocker than McGlinchey. And I granted, I had a fairly low opinion of Mike McGlinchey. And Jalen Moore is involved in this as well. People kind of sleep on him.
You can let that's a scenario where you let these guys compete and may the best man win.
The funny thing was, I thought Spencer Burford would be the right tackle. I thought that's why they drafted him in the first place.
You loved Burford. I remember you telling me about Burford before the draft.
Yep, he's a really good athlete. He played right guard, right tackle, and left tackle at UTSA. I really liked Burford from day one. He struggled at times, but he was a true rookie and young. So I expect him to be faster, stronger, better going into the next year and have that sort of Aaron Banks jump and be not in a rotation at guard, which would be helpful. But no, it was interesting. At least it wasn't like during the plays. At least it was a drive. It was like you had this drive.
Brunskill drive. It was good.
Yeah, at least they were like shuttling him off the field, like making it look like like in a little league where the coach yanks you out from from a bad pitch. But no, I think overall, with McKibbitz, he's going to compete. He's going to be the swing tackle for sure. Is he the starter? I personally believe it's up in the air, but he's a guy and I think for the Niners right now, guys are commodities when a lot of guys just left. You don't have to guess. You don't have to not know what a guy's work ethic is. You trust him. If you plug him in games, he can play and will give 120% and fit this scheme. Having said that, I don't necessarily think they're done. I think they're going to add a tackle. Maybe if it's in free agency, maybe it's in the draft. I know a lot of people love Blake Freeland. He is exactly what Mike McGlinchey should be, which would have been a third-round pick. It's like drafting his clone, which is awesome. If they do get him, that'd be BYU.
Okay. Ooh, okay.
Yeah. Very good athlete for his size. He's 6'8". He has that really long length. The Niners really value those really long tackles. I think he's a target for them on the draft board. They met with him in Indianapolis. I also think they could even sign a veteran. They could bring in George Fant. I think that's a name that I know he got hurt. So
easy, Johnny. We're gonna get to some free agent names here. I want to hear who you got pegged when we get to the free agent portion of the show.
Apologies.
But Johnny, I love your input. I want to wrap up on the re-signed players. T.Y. McGill, I thought he was solid last year. 49ers bring him back just today. That move happened today. Thought it was a good move. We need more bodies on the interior. T.Y. was solid. Makes sense to me. Thoughts on McGill?
Yeah, they brought back. We can kind of lump these last three together because they're all kind of the same. They're depth pieces. Givens is going to be the first defensive tackle off the bench.
Givens deserves his own segment, Johnny. Givens. No, I'm just playing. Sure. But Givens is my guy. I've always been high on Givens. He was on the field way more than I was expecting. Obviously that was due to injury, due to Javon being banged up, due to Ridgeway going down. It was by necessity. Givens filled in. He was solid, wasn't spectacular. I was hoping, to be honest, I wanted a little more out of Kevin Givens. It's because I know he's so talented. He's so quick in there.
Yeah.
I wanted a little more production from him. I'm not going to lie.
It's hard when you're the nose tackle in this defense because you're the first guy double teamed in the run game more often than not.
That's true.
And when you're not getting
DeForest Buckner made it look easy, but it's like that's DeForest Buckner.
Yeah, well, he's also 6'8" and 330, and it's impossible. He's like a mountain in there. It's unbelievable what he could do as the nose tackle. That was crazy. But yeah, no. It's a good signing. I mean, McGill is going to give you depth at D tackle. Gibbons is the first guy off the bench. He gives you some pass rush too. He got a couple sacks last year. Had some nice hurries when he got in there. So overall, definitely two good guys to bring back. And then the last guy on the list is DFF, little Demetrius. I'm actually surprised he came back. I thought he was gone when they didn't tender him.
Yeah, we knew Aziz was gone. He was going to cash in somewhere else. Although I believe I saw 1 year, $6 million for Aziz. Like, what are these teams doing? Aziz Al-Shaair, lock this guy up. He should have got at least like a 2 or a 3 year deal. Like, he's just a really darn good player. That's a really good signing by the Titans. In fact, we're going to say farewell to these players right now. Why don't we go rapid fire on these guys that we're saying goodbye to? Mike McGlinchey, he got overpaid by the Denver Broncos. 5 years, $87 million. What'd you think of that briefly?
Dude, I love Mike McGlinchey again. He got us a 3rd round pick. Thanks, Mike. Good luck.
Mike.
Thanks, Mike. When Russell
Russell, better keep an eye on that right side.
They got the worst quarterback on the planet to pair with Mike McGlinchey because he gets beat so often outside, and Russ likes to ballerina and spin out of there. And, he's going to run into so many sacks. I'm calling that one a mile away. But, yeah, Sean Payton is in charge. So he has the Walton's checkbook and can do whatever he wants because it sounds like the reason why he's in Denver is that he completely outbid the Bears and gave him $50 million guaranteed. So there you go.
Wowzers. Yeah, good luck, Broncos. Jimmy Garoppolo. He's going to be commanding the Las Vegas Raiders, reunited with Josh McDaniels. 3 years, $72 million. That's what it says on paper. I think it looks a little different if you look at the finer details of the contract.
It hasn't been signed yet. Did you hear about the press conference?
The press conference was postponed. I did read something about that.
His deal's not done yet.
So you think it's an injury flag? You think something medical got flagged?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh. I don't mean to laugh at Jimmy, but I will because so many people in this fan base just unmercilessly don't pay attention and just defend him. And I've had enough. I think a lot of Niner fans have had enough. It's like, yeah, you did a lot for a period. Thank you. Goodbye. Stop talking about him like he's Steve Young. Just stop. I can't deal with it anymore. But yeah, they'll get it worked out. Probably. I would sort of giggle if that dollar amount went down. It also would hurt the Niners if that dollar amount does go down. So I don't want it to, because they can't offset the Hargraves deal in the compensation round. So they wouldn't get they would lose that third that they currently have right now. So I do want him to get the contract. It's going to be I do want him to get that. Hey, if he gets more, even better. But I really believe that it's going to be a lot of fun watching Jimmy Garoppolo play for another team with the worst offensive line, and I will leave it at that.
Yikes! I think the Raiders cemented themselves along with the Broncos just at the bottom of the AFC West. I had heard the Raiders were in contention for trading up to that number 1 pick with the Bears. They were going back and forth with the Panthers. It would have been a way better idea for the Raiders just to overpay and get that first pick of the draft and develop a quarterback. Because Jimmy Garoppolo, I can tell you right now, Raiders, he's decent. He's mediocre. Like, if that's what you want, then by all means. But he's not winning you a Super Bowl. So,
Raider fans know that. They have. It's not like they've run around saying we're gonna have a sick quarterback. They're very aware. They are very aware of the signing. I do sort of feel bad for the Raiders because he was probably the worst player to go there. Because if it doesn't work out next year, you will have a mass exodus of talent, and it'll be right back where you were a couple years ago. So that's sort of the bummer if he gets hurt again, or they don't get a quarterback at 7. Because they'll probably lose Devontae, they'll lose Josh Jacobs for sure, and you're going to be right back at square one again. And that is really unfortunate, but that's a very real possibility.
No doubt. Jaron, thanks for stopping by. He said, welcome to the Lance Dance. Hey, I want to see Lance on the field, and see him get his shot, his opportunity. I'm
It's up to
hoping.
him.
I don't want to rush Brock Purdy back, so I'm expecting Lance to get maybe the first 2 or 3 games, and depending on how those go, if he's balling out of control, maybe he just grabs hold of this quarterback job. And it's like you don't want to give it to Brock Purdy until whether Trey falters or whatever the case may be. But I want Lance to get his shot because I think he's extremely talented. I think he's kind of gotten a raw deal here his first couple years, and I want to see him on the field.
Yeah, no, there's no question. No one's going to argue that. If you just say Trey Lance sucks because he's played 4 games and gotten hurt, you just shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. All right, he's had a bad deal. He's had some bad luck. All right, he's 23 years old, guys. He is younger.
He's younger than some of these quarterbacks coming out in the draft this year.
Yes, he is so damn young. Do not give up on this kid. I'm of the believer that Brock is not going to play until October. I really believe that. I think it'd probably be mid, maybe even November. I think the Niners are acutely aware that they need to see Trey Lance play. They cannot just say, I know John Lynch's comments scared the hell out of me. Don't get me wrong. But if the Niners are very serious
talking about the combine?
Yeah.
Was that at the
combine?
Scared the
crap out of me. I thought they were going to move him. I really thought they were going to excuse me, I'm sorry. I thought they were going to trade him that day, like at the combine. I really did.
I was talking about him like past tense.
Yeah. It's like, no, what he said was he needs to play. That's the problem. It's like, okay, well, Brock's not coming back anytime soon. So why is that a problem? Kruger harped on this as well, but I when I heard him talk, I heard the same thing. And so I was just like, what's the problem exactly? Trey is going to be the guy going through August. So if he looks good, he's going to play. Because you're not going to rush Brock back. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Do what's best.
Hey, Johnny, I want to go one sentence on each one of these guys because I want to get. We got a few other topics I want to get to. And so, sorry, Jimmy, you're moving on. I wish you all the best, Raiders. I'm sorry, this guy ain't getting it done for you. But let's move on to Samson Ebukam, who had a good Niners career, his couple years with the Niners. But to be honest, I'm looking for an upgrade. Like Samson's good, but the goal of the offseason is to get better. And who knows if that free agent is still out there. We're going to talk free agents in a minute here. But Samson, good player. I want to get better. What did you think about Samson?
Yeah, he played this whole year pretty nicked up. He played really good down the stretch of 21.
He was banged up this past year. That's a really good point. He played it was like ankle, Achilles, like it was,
It was like multiple things. I don't know how many times I saw him hobble off the field.
That's true.
So he's a really good player. He's a warrior. Yeah. He's a really underrated run defender. He's a pretty good pass rusher. But he was too expensive. I think the Niners realized what his limit was.
Yeah, 3 years, $24 million.
Yeah, he got a little bit of a pay bump. I think he was making like 6.5 here, and he priced himself out. So good for him. Unfortunately, he's going to the Colts, which is not exactly a team you want to be playing for right now. But I like Samson. I wish him nothing but the best.
Likewise, Omen Okoroh gets signed by the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. He's going to be playing next to Chris Jones. And before I get your thoughts on Charles Omen Okoroh leaving, Jaguayo, thanks for stopping by, Jaguayo. He said, if Cleo Davis is healthy, do you foresee him comparable to Givens? I think they're both really quick interior linemen. Like Cleo Davis was a linebacker to start in college, made the transition to D tackle. Kevin Givens played some running back in high school. Like both those guys are really athletic. So that's where I can see some comparisons. I'm hoping Davis is even better. Like Kevin Givens is solid. I like Givens. I'm hoping Davis has more upside and can be closer to like a DJ Jones.
Davis will be a starter on this team in the next couple of years. I'm calling that one because
love it.
He's like Kevin Givens, but he's 300 pounds. He's like 310, and he can move. He can move really well. His tape at UCF was phenomenal.
Yeah, his acceleration. I remember after we drafted him, you go back and watch the tape. Some guys have that acceleration right when the ball is snapped. they're making contact. He has really good acceleration at the snap of the ball.
He's got linebacker instincts at nose tackle.
Yeah.
It's a rare combination. He'll be a contributor. Hopefully he gets healthy though. We'll see. But the Niners are, for the first time in a long time, have a lot of depth at D tackle.
Yeah, hit the like and subscribe. Let's get some more people in here. Hit the like right now for me. Thanks for stopping by. But Omenihu, 2 years, 20 mil for Kansas City. So it sounds like a pretty good deal. He does have that off the field case kind of looming. I don't know what the result is, if anything's going to come to that, if that kind of took the 49ers out of contention, right? We know the 49ers, they kind of want that clean reputation. It feels like at least the last 3 or 4 years they've tried to clean it up. What do you think about Omenihu?
Yeah, we won winning with class, as Jed once said. Well, half his team was a disaster. No, the Omenihu one probably hurts. I think the next two guys on this list, Omenihu and Jimmy, definitely are the two biggest losses in the group. The truth is, I don't see.
Yeah, looking at it, I agree. Yeah,
they're the two biggest losses in the group because Omenihu can play multiple positions. You know, when he started a game when Nick Bosa was out, he had a sack, had 3 pressures. He's a really good player.
Omenihu, he was the second best defensive lineman, the second most consistent on the 49ers last year after Bosa.
Yeah, and that's pretty spot on. So, definitely the biggest loss on the defensive line, no question. He's going to be missed. The Niners, I felt like they needed him. That's why I was kind of hoping they would have gone a little cheaper at D tackle and gotten Omenihu back just to have more depth on the edge. But I think the Niners, I want to see what they do first. I'm not going to grill them just yet.
Hey, we're only 4 days into free agency, so it's hard to say anything definitive about what the 49ers have done, and kind of like you couldn't give it a grade right now. There's still moves that are going to happen. But Jimmy Ward goes to the Houston Texans with DeMeco Ryans, 2 years, 13 mil. He commanded less than I was expecting. Like when that came out, I was like, man, we couldn't make that work, but seems like the Niners want to go into another direction. DeMeco gets – anytime you're becoming a head coach somewhere else, you always want a few of those guys just to help build the culture. So DeMeco does that, gets it with the veteran Jimmy Ward. Jimmy, longest tenured Niner, no more. He will be missed. He always kept it real, man. Whether, we've seen the interviews talking to Grant or just when he's at the podium. Jimmy Ward he always keeps it real, and I wish him all the best.
Yeah, definitely one of my all-time favorite Niners. He's in my top 10. Like, I love Jimmy Ward just from start to finish of his career. He's a guy that a lot of people couldn't stand his first couple of years here. Couldn't stay healthy, didn't produce, and then over time became one of the most impactful defensive backs in football. Like, he's incredibly talented. The Niners kind of did him dirty this last year by making him play nickel, and that hurt him getting dollars. And he did it, and he wore a C on his chest, and he played his ass off. So there's that. If people have a bad word to say about Jimmy Ward, they're crazy. Definitely one of the best players, and I felt like at $7.5 million, I would have brought him back to play nickel, but I don't hold the checks, unfortunately.
No. Well, thanks, Jimmy. Well, I want to move to, we'll touch on these last few guys. Azeez Al-Shaair. I've always been a big fan of Al-Shaair. I think he's really talented. I think he's going to shine with Tennessee. Ron Carthon brings him over. Also, Daniel Brunskill, the next guy, might as well loop both of those guys in together because they're both going from the 49ers over to the Titans, Tennessee Titans. And Azeez, I think he's a really good player. Daniel Brunskill, I think Daniel Brunskill is just really solid. Like if he's your 6th offensive lineman, he could be your backup across the board. And if you want to start him at guard, well, he's decent there too. So those are 2 players that I liked, and I wish well with the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, it might be a really tough year in Tennessee. So, they gutted the roster a bit. They're talking about trading Jeffrey Simmons and Derrick Henry, and possibly Ryan Tannehill. So, good luck to them. I'm glad they got some raises. But we'll see what happens. Brunskill over his time, though, was a Swiss Army knife and filled in really well. And Alshire, 2021, had a phenomenal season. I know he missed some big tackles at times, but really, really good linebacker. He didn't get as much money as I thought he would get. He only got about $6 million a year, which is a little shocking, but makes sense too. So they got a little pay raise, and they're going to play a lot next year. And good luck to them.
Yeah. Last guy, Emmanuel Mosley. It's one of the tougher guys to say goodbye to. I really liked Emmanuel Mosley. I think he's a good player. Sucks that, he missed almost the whole season last year because he's just a darn good player. And I wanted him back. I'm not going to lie, Johnny. I wanted him back. I was thinking if you bring back E-Man, maybe you could shift Demo into the slot, but the Niners are going a different route. And I'm saying farewell to Emmanuel Mosley. My boy D-Hack got me a cameo of Emmanuel Mosley for my birthday a few years ago, where E-Man's like, hey, Eric, happy birthday. I heard you're a big fan of mine. You want me to stay with the Niners? Well, I want to stay with the Niners too. So it was just a great cameo. I put it up on my Twitter. Maybe I'll retweet it later, and I'll when I say my farewell to Emmanuel Mosley. But just a good player. We won't talk about the play in the Super Bowl where he got bit in that cover 3 zone and Tyreek Hill got him over the top. That was the one play. It's like, E-Man, dude, you're in the deep third, E-Man. But
hey, he's not the first guy to get beat by Tyreek Hill. Not the first guy.
No, but it's the Super Bowl, Johnny. It's the Super Bowl.
Yeah. The E-Man, losing to E-Man's definitely tough. He's a guy who was a UDFA, who is a high-level starting corner in the league. Those guys are always tough to lose. But at the end of the day, Lenore played really solid down the stretch. And they feel like they can, with Lenore and Oliver, save a little bit of cash and not bring back E-Man. He's coming off an ACL. I get it. But, it's definitely a harder pill to swallow, losing E-Man. He's a really good player, and glad he went to Detroit because they're going to compete next year. So good for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to catch up on some comments because I fell behind. Jack Hammer came by. I don't know if he's still in the chat, but Jack, you're the man. He said, big baller is killing it. Keep growing, my man. Hey, Jack, I'm just trying to get on your level, and I'm going to hit you up. I want to link up with you, Jack, and we'll talk some ball. Let's
Jack's the man.
Yeah. No doubt. Jack on the film reviews. I've learned some stuff from Jack. G9 Garage, to be honest, as Niner fans, we're so spoiled, blessed to have so many good content creators. There's always someone to watch. That's facts. That's facts. Jaguayo said, which old lineman can be close to being our next Brunskill? Do you think it's Zakel?
Yeah, it's
right? Yeah. Me and Johnny are on the same page there.
Yeah. That one's
Jack's in the house. Yeah, I want to catch up on these comments here. Mark Graves, we should get compensation for losing players to ex-coaches that leave the same year.
I mean, you do. You do.
We got the comp picks are rolling in, Mark. The comp picks, they're rolling in. We got 3 of them coming up here in this draft. Or is it 2? Is it 2 comps or all 3 of those comps?
No, it's going to be like 4 in this draft.
I mean, I'm sorry, in the third round.
Oh, they have all 3 are from coaches. Next year,
all 3 are from coaches. You gotta love that.
And then next year, right now, they're lined up with 2. 1 from the McGlinchey signing. Garoppolo would have been there too, but they signed Hargrave, so that canceled it out. And then 1 from the Carthon and D'Amico.
Love it. They're working that. That's good.
And you had to say Jack.
That's good. Okay. Jaguayo said, where do you think Womack fits in? I like Womack. I think you're going to have him competing with Isaiah Oliver for that slot job. That's what I'm thinking. Also, Womack, I don't think you want to just kind of profile him as strictly a slot guy, because we saw some of that sticky coverage mostly in the preseason when I remember a couple of those interceptions he had were just ridiculous, like ball skills. Just peek your head around, boom, interception. So Womack, I think he's talented. You have him compete. You're not going to hand Diamador Lenore the starting job. Demo played good. Like, he's the favorite. Don't get me wrong. But I'm not just handing it out. I want to see Womack compete, Isaiah Oliver, Demo, Charvarius Ward's locked in his starting spot. But rest of these guys, let them battle it out.
I also think Womack could be a guy who might end up playing free safety. I'm starting to feel that way a little bit. Yeah, he's a really good athlete. Just because I feel like the Niners do really like him. And the fact they brought in the slot was a little interesting to me because I thought they were going to let him get maybe draft a guy. But they're also, CYOA, right? Cover your ass. Bringing a lot of talented guys and figure it out. But Womack might be one of those guys who's very versatile for a while, young in his career, until someone gets hurt and he's forced to play, which happens. So he's going to be a factor on this team the next 3 years. There's no question about that.
Yeah, I think he's good. I think Womack's a good player. Mm-hmm. Well, Johnny, we just went down all these players. We just talked about every one of these players on this list here. And that being said, I got a question for you. Have the 49ers improved? And it's okay. There's a caveat. There's a caveat because obviously there's still more moves to come. But as we stand and what you can kind of project, have the Niners gotten better?
No, I mean, their roster's incomplete, but it's March 16th. I'm not going to go on Twitter and say the sky is falling. They blew up a Super Bowl contending team, like I've seen some people say, which is just absolutely crazy. They got a lot of time. They figure out some moves. What do they want to do? Who's still available in free agency? But right now, no, they're probably not as good as they were last year. But I think the real question is, it's not how they maybe have not improved, is that how the NFC in general has gotten way, way worse. And so that might be the biggest thing to this as well.
And what makes you say that? Because I don't disagree with you, but what makes you think that the rest of the NFC got worse?
Well, the Eagles got picked apart.
Eagles got picked apart. The Rams are giving players away. They're cutting guys left and right. Jalen Ramsey for a 3rd-round pick, Johnny. Like, that's the best you could get.
Yeah, they probably ate contract. Is what happened. The Dolphins probably had to eat some of the deal, and that's why the compensation was less. But also, Jalen's not coming off a great season. Like, he wasn't exactly lights out this last year. So
players like that, players who are that good, and sometimes when the team goes into tank, you can kind of lose some of your edge and some of your focus because that's not that I want to make excuses for anybody. You always want to put your best tape out there, but when your team sucks and
Well, I mean, he literally got thrown off the team in Jacksonville because he threw basically a BF. And got the coach fired, and remember that after the year after.
Yeah, he's kind of weird. He's kind of weird.
No, he's really good. So he's really good. So you tolerate
it. He is really good.
Yeah,
that's why I was surprised that the best they could get was a 3rd-round pick.
Well, I mean, right now the Rams are they're in shed mode. They lost Bobby Wagner, who had a really good season last year too. I'm very curious to see what they're going to do. But they're going to be really bad next year. I think them and the Cardinals are going to be 2 of the worst teams in the NFL. And I don't think that's a hot take.
Wow.
Yeah.
No doubt. Well,
but
to answer my own question, have the 49ers improved? It's incomplete right now, but what I will say is they're on pace, in my opinion, to have improved. Getting Javon Hargrave, getting that superstar on the interior is huge. And we look down this list of players that the 49ers lost. It's like, Jimmy Ward stings. Al-Shaair was a luxury as that 3rd linebacker. Emmanuel Mosley, they played most of the season without him last year, although he is a good player.
Right.
Brunskill was in. So it's like, in my opinion, they didn't lose any back-breaking players. They lost good players. But getting a Javon Hargrave, if they are able to add a couple more able bodies, another maybe one more splash signing, which we're going to talk about some free agents that we're looking at here in a second. That's our next topic. But if they can make just a couple more moves, maybe one more splash signing at defensive end, then I think they're on pace to improve their team over this offseason.
Yeah, the Niners, though, I think they addressed their biggest team need that was not right tackle was interior defensive line, and they addressed the hell out of it. So, at corner, I could see why I let go of E-Man and let go of Ward. I feel like they got cheaper, and there's not going to be a massive drop off. I maybe rephrase because Jimmy Ward was a really good slot player. There will be a drop off, but it won't be as significant maybe as people think. A linebacker, you're still really good, and then Marcelino McQuarrie Ball is probably going to be the sleeper linebacker to come up and get better over the
former
next few
safety.
years.
He's got all the athleticism. Talking McQuarrie Ball,
he checks all those boxes of those former safety linebackers who end up being really good. So yeah, I think he's going to be the guy who's going to step up as that third linebacker. And then on offense, you didn't have a ton of holes. You basically had two holes, and you re-signed Brendel. And I understand people are still freaking out about right tackle, but let's just give him some time. We'll see what happens, and then we'll figure it out.
Well, I got the answer to right tackle. I got the answer. And why don't we just get to it now? I want to talk about – there's a few free agents that I'm looking at, okay? None of them are splashier than Javon Hargrave. I mean, that guy was the top defensive tackle on the board, all right?
Yeah.
But the first player I want to talk about when we're talking remaining free agents, there's a few guys I'm looking at, and I want to start out at the tight end position. I want to upgrade tight end too, Johnny. I was saying it last offseason. They didn't upgrade it. They brought in Croft, Dwelly. I mean, these guys, Charlie Warner could barely get on the field. It was, why don't we get a legitimate tight end too? And there's a couple guys I'm looking at. Austin Hooper, who's been with Kyle Shanahan in Atlanta. He's a good player. Probably it might be out of the 49ers price range. Do you think Hooper might be out of their price range?
Probably, yeah.
Probably. Okay. Well, I got another name for you. Good thing you said that, because I got another name for you. If he's out of the price range, I'm looking at Irv Smith. Irv Smith, he's been dinged up. He's had a myriad of injuries in his career, but he's a really talented player coming out of Alabama. I really liked him, and he's an athletic guy. Maybe not the blocker that they're looking for, but that's like, hey, they were blocking George Kittle a ton early on last year. It's like, if you want to block him, well, then now you got a prolific pass catcher in Irv Smith that you bring in. Makes a little more sense to me. So those are a couple tight ends that I'm kind of monitoring in the market, and I'd be really intrigued with Irv Smith coming off those injuries. It'd be a high upside signing.
Right. No, it would be. I think tight end, they're probably going to draft a guy. I don't think they want to spend the money to bring in a tight end, because it's probably going to still be a multi-year deal. And tight ends are fairly expensive now. It's not the days when tight ends were like $1 million for a guy off the bench. Like that, they don't cost that. And no, Verrett's gone, probably retiring.
But thanks for stopping by, though, Nick. And he also added that Kruger loves McQuarrie Ball. Yeah, me too. There's a lot to like about him. He's super athletic.
I haven't seen him play a lot. I won't watch preseason games, but I like what I saw. And I think of all the people who do this, Kruger probably has the best eye. So I tend to agree with some of when he talks about guys that you don't see practice every day, that he saw all camp. I tend to believe that he's pretty spot on.
Yeah. What about you? Any free agent? I touched on a tight end. Do you got a guy that you're looking at that's still available?
I think the Niners are going all in. Like, if they're going all in, F it. We're trying to win a Super Bowl. F the picks. F whatever. They got to go get Zadarius Smith, because I think he's gettable. And I think it's not even – and the other thing, too, it's not crazy expensive. It would only be about $7 or $8 million this year against the cap, and then you wouldn't have any guaranteed money against you next year, and you could release him. And then he could basically just turn into basically a rental player to go win a championship. He's shown he's still a really good pass rusher. Pairing that D-line together would be sick. That would be the move. I don't think they're going to do that. I think the 49ers also kind of realize that they have some long-term holes they need to fix with these draft picks. They really don't want to give up too many of them. Will they trade up in the draft? Possibly. I think for free agents, I'd say George Fant's a name. I know he got hurt last year, but he's a veteran right tackle. He played a lot for the Jets, so he played in the Kyle Shanahan scheme with
So he's also been
before
in
his
the
brother.
NFC West with the Seahawks. We saw him with the Seahawks. Yeah.
Yeah, and he logged pretty good snaps. So I think that might be a route because you can get him very cheap and it won't affect the cap compensation formula. He also might be a free agent until June because he's hurt. So you might be able to get him really, really cheap at the end of the year. And then it doesn't affect the cap formula whatsoever. So the compensation formula. So yeah, I think there are guys out there who can be a veteran stopgap in case the draft doesn't go your way. But I do believe the Niners will draft a right tackle at some point in the draft. Who that is, I don't know. It depends who's on the board. So
I like it. Johnny. Let me know what you think about these names I'm gonna throw at you. You mentioned Zadarius Smith. That would be, like you said, they'd have to trade for him because the Vikings haven't cut him. I know he bid farewell and he wants to be cut, but it hasn't happened yet.
And they
but
signed
I'm
Marcus
looking at
Davenport. Yeah.
And they signed Marcus Davenport. So yeah, it seems like they have a lot allocated there with Danielle Hunter, Zadarius Smith, now Davenport. So Smith might be on the way out, but I'm looking at another edge rusher because I want that true Leo, that speed rusher opposite Bosa. And Yannick Ngakoue is he fits that profile. The guy has 8 sacks every year of his NFL career.
Mm-hmm.
The guy just gets after the quarterback. I know he doesn't play the run very well.
Yeah.
PFF hates him in the run. I don't know if he's like allergic to run defense or what it is, but a lot of times you hear Kosera coaches the defensive line like you play the run on the way to the quarterback. So that's just kind of how they teach it anyway. And I feel like that speed rusher that Yannick Ngakoue would provide could just be this lethal formula. It's what they signed D Ford to be, that speed rusher off the edge. Now the QB has to step up into the pocket, and he's stepping up into Armstead. Now he's stepping up into Hargrave. So a true speed rusher, I think, would be great. So Yannick would be at the top. That would probably, that'd be a expensive signing. He's not cheap. And then the other edge rusher, same thing. I'm looking at the Leo speed rusher. This guy would be cheaper, and it's Dante Fowler, former. Yeah. He was like a top 3 pick, a top 5 pick, Dante Fowler a few years ago.
With the Jags.
Yeah. He can get after the quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are options. I just don't think the Niners are going to do it. I really don't. I think they're going to go cheap. I think their plan is going to be they're going to try and re-sign Jordan Willis at that $2 or $3 million price tag that he made last year. They're letting him test it. He's probably not going to get a contract, and then they'll come back. So then they'll already have 5 ends on the roster, and then they'll probably draft 1 or 2 guys. I think that's what they're going to end up doing. I get it. I understand why people want the edge rushers, but I think the Yannick, I don't think Kosera would want him personally, just because he doesn't play well against the run. Yeah, I don't. I gotta be honest. I don't think
he's so sick. I don't know, Johnny. I was just watching some Yannick Ngakoue highlights, dude. He's got all the moves to pass rush him. He's got this leap rush where he just pulls the offensive lineman's arm down and he just like jumps and then he's by you. It's like, man. And I know he's bounced around, so that could be a red flag, right? He's really bounced around. But I think he's been on like 3 or 4 teams in the last 3 or 4 years. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, ever since he got moved from the Jags and then he had that bad year in Minnesota, he's just been bouncing around nonstop.
The Ravens.
Was it the Ravens? I thought it was the Vikings.
Well, Yannick started his career with the Ravens. Yeah. He was really good. Then Jags. Why am I thinking Ravens? No, he went to the Ravens though. Yeah, he had a 1-year pit stop. This is the thing. The guy's bounced around so much. You're right. He's Jags, Ravens, Vikings, Raiders, Colts. I'm telling you, it's been a crazy. He's got a lot of frequent flyer miles, but Yannick, he's just so supremely talented that I would want him in. It would probably be a 1-year deal. It's one of those things where, hey, you bring him in maybe 1 year, $10 million, because he was banged up. He missed some games last year. But if you can get him in something like that, and what you're pitching to him is Yannick, you're surrounded by so much freaking talent that you're going to walk into 12 sacks this year. Then you cash in on a multi-year deal. I'm just telling you, that's how you pitch it to him.
Right. No, I mean, yeah, I just think that the Niners, they don't want to spend on specialists. I think D Ford scared the hell out of them for spending on a specialist. Ever since they're on defense, they just don't do that. They like guys who are 3-down players, and I understand that. That makes a lot of sense. You're right though. So that year, he went from Minnesota to Baltimore to the Rams, or is that the Rams? Oh, the Raiders.
No.
To the Raiders.
The Raiders, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I saw LR and I was like, is that Rams? No, it was Raiders. But yeah, he in 20 he played for two teams. It's Minnesota and Baltimore.
Yeah, the dude's been bouncing around, but I'm still enamored with the talent. And then I'll give you one last name that I got. It's a different position. I'm looking at right tackle, and I'm looking at, interestingly enough, a Raider. This guy was on the Raiders last year playing right tackle, Jermaine Illuminor. PFF liked his blocking score. I watched some Raider tape. You just specifically looking at the right tackle Illuminor. I thought he looked solid. Like he's not that big. At least he didn't look that big on tape. I don't know if he's 6'3", maybe 6'4", but he was just getting the job done. And at this point, if you can get him in on a relatively cheap deal, you're not paying him big bucks, but he's not going to be $2 million either, because the guy was good last year. And again, that's Jermaine Illuminor.
Yeah, he might be. One of the things about free agency this year is after the big guys went, nobody signed, and for big money. And part of it is that the cap didn't go up all that much compared to what teams are spending. There's not a lot of money to be had out in free agency. So there are going to be some bargain free agents this year. I think it's going to be an interesting thing for the NFL moving forward, just because they didn't raise the cap as much as they probably should have. And because of that, it's going to open up some holes. And so maybe the Niners do get some value signings at tackle. Illuminor is definitely a name. I definitely think he would be a plug-and-play player, at least for a season. Again, that's a good call. What we got?
I think he's a little better than McGill. Just from what I've seen.
I agree. Well, we don't know about Colton McQuibbitz playing right tackle. We've only ever seen him play left tackle, and it was one game. So I mean, he's barely played ever since. A lot of guard. He played guard. I remember that Packer game where the Niners had everyone out with COVID, and they got just absolutely annihilated. I remember that game. Oh God, that was so bad.
Oh, was that Richie James was the number one wide receiver game?
River Craycraft, yeah.
River Craycraft got the call up.
Yeah.
Gotta love it. Let's answer Jaguayo. Jaguayo, thanks for sticking in. He said, any chance in hell we could get Gardner Johnson or Leonard Floyd, or do they address cornerback and edge in the draft? And Gardner Johnson, I would say no. I don't know. How do you feel about Gardner Johnson? Do they have the capital to pull that one off?
They don't have the capital.
They don't have the capital.
He's so good. Oh my God,
he's really good. He can play in the slot. He can cover. The guy can do it all from the safety position.
He's a better Jimmy Ward. He's a better Jimmy Ward.
He's the
same player, but he's better than Jimmy was.
If you just clicked upgrade on Jimmy Ward, you get CJ Gardner Johnson. Leonard Floyd, I feel like it sounds kind of plausible. We were talking edge rushers. I threw out Dante Fowler, Yannick, but Leonard Floyd is probably somewhere in between those two.
Yeah.
In terms of price
Floyd
range.
He's a possibility. I think he's probably more realistic because he could sign a 1-year prove-it deal and show up. Gardner Johnson, he's going to get too much money. He's probably going to get somewhere between annually $9 to $15 million a year. Although I'm kind of shocked he hasn't signed yet, which is interesting. Maybe he might sign a 1-year deal and just say, hey, I'm going to just win a Super Bowl this year and make everyone think I'm sick, which is sort of shocking to me. But yeah, he might have been the best player on that Philly defense last year, not named Hassan Reddick. He was really, really good. And we'll see what happens there.
No doubt. Hey, Dusty Gold, thanks for stopping by. He said, "Yo, Bay Area baller. Yo, what up, Dusty? G9 Garage baller. Bucks give us Wirfs in a third for Ayuk. Your thoughts?"
Nah,
I
the
think I
Bucks would
do it.
never do
I
that.
think I do it.
Oh,
I think
I would do it too, but the Bucks would never do that
the
because
Bucks wouldn't do it.
what you're gonna give Baker Mayfield 7 wide receivers to throw to? They've already spent big on Godwin. They've already spent big on Mike Evans. They do a pretty good job of developing receivers down there, even through the different coaches. And Wirfs is probably going to be a long time Buck. It wouldn't also you also wouldn't get a third. You probably would. It'd be a player swap. But I mean the Ayuk trade's a real thing. I think Niner fans don't want to talk about it because the truth is that the Niners, if everyone keeps saying, well, trade up in the draft. Well, you can't go that far because your picks are at the back end of the third round. And because of that, there's only about 3 tradable assets. One is Brandon Ayuk, one is Trey Lance, and actually I think that's it. To like get higher up.
Ayuk is the trade chip. I was
Yeah.
having some fun early in the offseason, after Nick did that interview saying how it'd be fun to play with Joey. It's like, well, Ayuk for Bosa makes some sense if you kind of squint a little bit. Chargers could use kind of a athletic receiver, Mike Evans, Keenan Allen. They're both kind of possession guys. But Joey Bosa got restructured, so that's off the table. But Brandon Ayuk is the trade chip. Like, if they might not be able to afford to extend him, what Brandon Ayuk is going to command. So that could kind of force their hand a little bit, and they could probably get more by trading him now because the team getting him would have 2 years of team control. That being said, it's like you don't want to trade Ayuk. Obviously, he's a good player, but if it's some team's going to overpay and, the Niners know, look, we don't have the capital to extend Brandon Ayuk, then I understand it.
Well, I mean, I don't think this is the year to trade Brandon Ayuk. If you're going to do it next year, because he's going to get a 5th-year option regardless, because it's.
But do you agree? You could probably get a little more for him right now, just for that extra year of team control.
I mean, no, because again, he's kind of got the Debo factor to him, where he's had one good season. That's a thing, is that Debo really only had one good year before he got the massive contract. Ayuk, I know his rookie year was pretty solid, but the team was terrible. But this last year was the year that Ayuk really shined, and I think he's really good. I think he's heavily underutilized. But so maybe just from that alone, but for him, I don't think it matters. I think teams will pay a lot more for Brandon Ayuk because he could play in any sort of offense. I think that's the other part about Ayuk's game. He could play in any offense because he's such a good route runner. So and he's got really good hands. So it doesn't his thing doesn't matter as much as Debo's. Ayuk is gonna we'll see, but I believe they're gonna give him the 5th-year option, and then if they need to, they could trade him next year, and no, there's no cap hit, which would suck. I don't want them to do it, but God, does that sound like a 49er move?
It does. I like this comment by Jaguaya. I know it's early, but since the NFC is weaker, who are the top 4 NFC teams? And I feel like Niners, Eagles are easy.
Cowboys,
easy snap decisions. Cowboys, I'm looking at the NFC teams right here, and Cowboys, I would have them in there.
I think it's a toss-up.
Who's your 4th team, though? Who's the
I think it's a toss-up between the Lions, the Vikings, and the Giants. I think one of those 3. I can't put Seattle in there. That Geno Smith's their quarterback. But I think it's the 4th best team is either the Lions, the Vikings, or the Giants.
Man, that's tough. I'm looking up and down these divisions trying to get that. Who's that 4th team?
That 4th team is not in the NFC South. Who knows how that's going to look this year? Who knows? It could be another disaster year. It's got to be a team in the North. It's not a team in the West. It's got to be a team in the North and a team in the East. And Washington, they're very serious about the Sam Howell, Jacoby Brissett thing. So I'm out on them right off the bat. And the Giants, I think, have gotten better. They've improved. They're getting receivers this year. I know Daniel Jones has had one good season. The Bears. I see a G9. The Bears are sneaky, but I really hate what the Bears did. They traded Roquan Smith, didn't get a first round pick, and then they signed Tremaine Edmonds. What? Just keep the guy.
He's a good
better.
player. He's a good player,
Yeah,
but they got a lot of needs on that team.
Yeah, well, Roquan's better, and you paid him what, $20 million more over 4 and with an extra year. So like,
oh my God,
really...
are you serious? And
yeah,
when you look at it like that, oh my God.
Yeah, Edmonds got 4 over 72, and Roquan got 5 over 20, or 100 over 5. So like, wow. It's basically the same contract. Like, I get you. Maybe you just want the pick from Baltimore because they traded a second round pick for Chase Claypool. I still can't believe they did that. That was
yeah.
But anyway,
you talked me into it. The fourth team, the Giants, the Lions. I like where your head's at there.
Yeah.
Vikings
are still there too. They're still in that mix.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, they're still there.
Yeah. Julio Jones. No. Okay.
No.
Okay. I was just looking at the free agent list of receivers, and if he's cheap, then Julio. Anytime a player can go by one name, I'm intrigued. Julio.
Oh, yeah. Julio 5 years ago, for sure. Julio now.
Yeah, you're right. So we're running long here, Johnny. But I want to. Last year, you put me on to a few guys, namely Spencer Burford, Sam Williams, who ended up getting drafted by the Cowboys. You told me to check him out, and I was like, whoa, dude, this dude Sam Williams looks sick. So I got to ask you, Johnny, who are your draft crushes this year? Who do you think would just be a phenomenal pick for the 49ers to take?
Oh, my favorite is that kid from the defensive end from Missouri, Elijah McGuire. He's my sneaky pick. I love Elijah McGuire. He's got Chris Kasarik written all over him. He's like 6'4", 270. He looks super bendy. He has pass rush moves. He at times, even on a team that was one of the worst teams in the SEC, he looked dominating. Like they just were a terrible team. I love Elijah McGuire. There's a fit with Wilkes. Wilkes was the defensive coordinator there 2 years ago. So I do like that as well. Elijah McGuire is my big draft crush. I think that one's been thrown around in the community a little bit. I think I heard Jordan Elliott say he really liked him too. We'll see. I think if he falls the Niners in the third round,
let me tell you, if Johnny likes a guy and the Splash cousin likes the same guy, then I can tell you when I put on the tape, I'm probably going to like the dude because I trust both of these guys' evaluations.
He's really young.
Along the lines of the defensive end, I was talking about that speed rusher. Pre-show, I was telling you I dove in at the tight end position, D-tackle position. I'm just getting started at defensive end. But I want to ask you, is there a speed rusher or like a Leo edge guy that you've kind of seen from the prospects? Because that's really what I feel like when you're looking at the need at the defensive end position. Man, I want that speed rusher. Is there anyone that fits that criteria?
Yeah, there's one that the Niners can get. It's Yasir Abdullah from Louisville. He's just undersized. He's 6'1", like 242. That's what he's on. That's what he's listed on PFF. But he's a legit edge speed rusher. Like, that's why I'm a little bit out on paying money in free agency for guys like that, because if you can get him in the 5th round and for 4 years under team control, he might contribute even more. So
and it's like strictly he's a pass down pass rusher. You're only playing him on 3rd and long or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. But I think him and also Zach Harris, like if he slimmed down, like I know he played at like 275, 280 in Ohio State. If you got him to like slim down, like I think he would be a monster off the edge. He's a really good athlete. And right now, like he's free falling in the draft process from what I've seen on like PFF and other sites. And this was a guy who was like a possible 1st round pick going into the year. That wouldn't shock me at all if the Niners took him and one of the 3rd round picks either. Also, the kid from San Jose State, my alma mater, Vilamai Fokua. I don't know how to say his last name. I'm sorry, man. But he's really good. Yeah, he's really good. Jaguayo, I see you. Felix is not going to be on the board, so
oh man,
it's a moot point.
Jaguayo's been hyping up Felix. He was telling me, "Hey, baller, check out Felix and Udiki Uzama. Check him out. And when I put on the tape, I was like, "Whoa, dude! I see why you like him, Jaguayo, because that dude, he's got a strong build. He's got really good get off. He seems like he's fast and just seems like a good player." I think I told Jaguayo that exact same thing. I was like, "What I just watched, Jaguayo, this guy's not going to be there at the end of the third.
He's going to go in the first round. Yeah, he's 21. Like he just turned 21. So he's got those 3 Bs. He's bendy, he's big, and he's badass. You know, he's going to be a hell of a player in the league. Some team with a late first round pick is going to get lucky. Unfortunately, it's not the 49ers.
No. Next year, 49ers get their first round picks back. So we gotta use a little patience on that one. Yeah. Let me tell you about probably my biggest draft crush, and you alluded to it earlier. You think the Niners might go the draft route to get that tight end too. And I told you I went down the list of tight ends. I've scouted it really well. In fact, let me turn to my tight end notes, but I don't need to tell you to see the notes to tell you Zach Kuntz out of Old Dominion looks spectacular. Now, the thing is, Johnny, he ran the 4.55 at the combine, which is a blazing speed. So now he's on everybody's radar. But when you watch the tape, it makes sense because the guy's explosive. He's 6'6". He's plucking balls that are 10 feet up in the air, full extension, like he's coordinated. And Zach Kuntz, man, this dude, if he's there in the third round, which he might be, suffered a knee injury last season, only played 5 games. But the year before that, he caught like 70-something balls, was ultra productive. Zach Kuntz, dude, right? That I couldn't tell you. I just know he caught 70-something balls last year. This year he played 5 games when I was looking at it. And then you watch the tape, and the dude just popped off the screen. Zach Kuntz is my tight end draft crush, where it's like the third round. It's one of those things where it would be a luxury pick. The 49ers have more pressing issues that we've talked about. D-end, right tackle. They need another D tackle. A safety would be nice. But, man, Zach Kuntz, dude, I'd be salivating at the mouth of that tight end tandem, George Kittle, Zach Kuntz.
Yeah, no, this is a really good tight end draft in general. There's not a lot of deep position groups.
That's a really good point.
News. Yeah, but I will say, as far as as position groups that are deep, this is the perfect draft for the 49ers. There's a lot of pretty solid edges in there. There's a lot of good tight ends. There's a lot of good there's a few good safeties, a lot of good corners. The funny thing was, Keltz, I think you threw in. What'd you say? Yeah, Keltz, your boy. I see the way Kuntz. Yeah, Kuntz is going to be a stud. I like Tucker Kraft too. Oh, nice. You got him in the mask? Oh, that's sick. When'd you get that thing?
This was on my trip in Mexico, my vacation. Me and my wife went over to Cancun. We're walking around Cancun. And, when you go to the shops in Mexico, you get to bargain a little bit. And this guy, he had all these masks. Dude, he had like every freaking college you could think of. He had every pro team. So I was like, how am I going to walk by and not buy a 49ers mask and a Warriors mask? And at first, I think he wanted like 2 for like $120, and I ended up talking him down. I want to pay the guy. It's all handcrafted, but I talked him down. I think it was like 2 for $80 or something. So I talked him down a little bit. Got a couple masks. Baby. Like, how could you walk by and not buy this thing?
I think it's sweet. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's pretty sweet. Yeah. No, but yeah, no, a guy I like, Jaguayo, you're just blowing up my spot because you keep saying names I'm about to say. I like Josh Wiley. You said Noah Wiley, but I don't know who you're talking about.
Dude,
It's the second time you've done it.
Yes. That was my next guy. Like Zach Kuntz is my top tight end draft crush. Josh Whyle, I'm looking at my notes here. The guy is good. That was the first thing I wrote. I said he catches the ball, he gets upfield, he's got good yak. You saw him with Desmond Ridder. He was ultra productive in college, catching a bunch of balls from Ridder, who's the Falcons quarterback now. But yeah, Josh Whyle's really freaking good.
Ultra productive on a really good team. That's the thing with Josh Whyle that I really like, and I think that's always bodes well for pass catchers. When you're ultra productive on a really good team, that means that you're one of their best guys with the ball in their hands.
Yeah, and you mentioned Tucker Kraft. I liked Tucker Kraft, what I saw from him. He's a fluent mover. And then, Sam Laporta, he ain't going to be there at the end of the third round. When I was watching Sam Laporta, we're talking about the Iowa tight end. Johnny, tell me if you see this, but I was watching Sam Laporta. I was seeing flashes of Dallas Clark.
Yeah, he's a little shorter. He's a little shorter.
Yeah, 6'3", but he's like super quick, just a really good route runner. And Laporta's really good, but I don't think he's going to be there at the end of the third round.
Yeah, this is again, this tight end draft is nasty. Darnell Washington, like he's a monster.
That dude's huge. He's a really good blocker too. Really good blocker.
Yeah. If it wasn't for Brock Bosner, that tight end, that's like the number one tight end prospect in the last like 5 years coming out. Like it wasn't for that kid, Washington would have probably be a first round pick.
Yeah,
but he just didn't play
Georgia. Yeah, they got that youngster who's supremely talented.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be surprising at all to see him come in the league and wreck shop right away. But he's not going to be on the board when the Niners pick. That would be shocking. And Musgraves is good too. I really like Luke Musgraves from
you know what? I'm low on Musgrave. I'm lower.
Really?
I know he's way up. Well, he's way up at the top of the board. I'm low in like retrospect because PFF has him as the third. They got him as the third ranked tight end. But I like guys more. I like Sam Laporta more than him. I like Zach Kuntz more than him. I like Josh Whyle more than him. He moves like a wide receiver when we're talking Luke Musgrave. Like he moves like a wide receiver. I wasn't seeing it with the physicality.
He's bigger.
I'm lower on Luke Musgrave than the consensus. I'll tell you that.
Fair enough. He's got really good hands though. Like he's going to be
he's like a wide receiver, but it's like at that point, well, you might just want a wide receiver there.
That's fair. I don't blame you with the logic there. I think that's totally fair.
Yeah. I'm just looking at my list here. Will Mallory he's not a good blocker. Again, he's more of like a wide receiver, but he's dynamic. Ran a 4.54. He's not a good blocker. That might be.
Kyle will nix that in 2 seconds.
Last name I'll put a star by his name, and it's Daniel Barker out of Michigan State. Dude's an athlete. He's fast and he loves dancing. Right? He was dancing a lot after he scored touchdowns. He's a dancer.
He's a late round guy, right? Daniel Barker.
He's a later round guy. Yeah, he's down the list. He's down the list. Daniel Barker out of Michigan State. So that would be a later round pick. And I got a name. You might not have heard of this guy, but if you want a pure blocker, you're going to the Air Force Academy and you're looking at Kyle Patterson. Kyle Patterson out of the Air Force. He had very little production. They had a wonky offense, kind of read option, not with the triple option. So he didn't catch a lot of balls, but there was one game I found of Kyle Patterson. PFF puts out this list. I'm watching tape on all these guys. I found one game of Kyle Patterson at Air Force. The dude's moving people, and he's got the size, he's got the profile. So as a late pick, kind of as a high upside unknown, Kyle Patterson.
He won't get drafted. He won't get drafted. I like him as a UDFA. I don't think he'll get drafted.
Saying Niners got a lot of 6th, 7th round picks. Take him in the 7th round. That way you don't got to fight other teams for the It's like same thing.
It worked out.
They liked Brock Purdy. If they don't take him, Brock Purdy's probably he's getting phone calls from multiple teams. But when you take him, you lock them into that spot. So if they want a blocking tight end, look at Kyle Patterson. But that's going to conclude my draft crushes, Johnny. I don't know if there's any other name you want to throw out there, but we're about to wrap it up.
No, it's been hard because, guys, they're so far back. Who knows who's even going to be on the board? But you just know that a lot of the guys that you really like in this process are not going to be there. Like there's Blake Freeland. I like Tyler Steen too for tackle. I think those guys are realistic options at in the 90s. Cody Marsh, I think he's going to be a guard. I don't know if he's going to be a tackle, but we'll see what happens. Well, I can give you better answers after I actually watch all these guys tape. I just haven't had the time, but we'll see what happens with who's on the board, and the Niners will probably take a running back. So
3rd round, lock it in, running back. No, you know what? Last name I'm looking at my DN list, but Dante Stills out of West Virginia. He kind of profiles as maybe that kind of Charles Omenihu-ish kind of like big end, but you could also rotate him inside on passing downs.
Yeah.
Dante Stills out of West Virginia. 49ers did meet with him at the combine, if I'm remembering correctly, so there could be some interest there.
Dude, I love Mojo.
Kelch, thanks for stopping by. You said, Baller, got to throw the mask and dance around the bonfire like Castaway if we win the Super Bowl. Castaway, underrated movie. I like Castaway.
That's underrated? Hanks. That's a phenomenal movie.
When you hear people talk about like good movies, no one ever mentions Castaway. That's why.
Yeah, because it's
underrated,
like listing Schindler's List. It's super depressing. They're phenomenal movies.
I know, but he makes it out, dude. He gets off that island.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. It's
uplifting.
A ending than
it's like a roller coaster of emotions, and a lot of movies are like that. Hey, Johnny, had a blast talking ball. I'll tell you what, in the next couple weeks before the draft, we got to get back on, fire up, a mock draft simulator and start clicking on some of these prospects, getting acquainted with these guys.
Oh no, sounds good. I'll definitely by April I'll have watched the guys the Niners can draft, and I could give a better idea. But yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. We'll see how they fill out the rest of the roster, and then what the true needs are going into the draft.
No doubt. Hey, chat was live. Thank you guys for stopping by in the chat. Like the video just to give it a boost for me, please. $80. Yeah, $80, dude. I had to talk them down. That's what you got to do. You got to bargain a little bit. It's part of the fun.
It's part of the fun.
Yeah, he was right after he bought those. He was probably out back there chiseling away, getting the new mask ready to roll. So, chat was live. Thank you, fellas. Let's see, closing out. Jaguayo, you're the man. Kelts, you're the man. Straight out of the Bay, we'll be coming back around soon on Mondays. But hey, Johnny, again, thanks for coming on, and we'll be talking ball here soon.
My pleasure, my friend. Everyone take care. Go Niners, huh?
Go Niners.